Good afternoon and welcome to our daily COVID-19 update for the town of Plymouth. This is update number 33. It's coming to you live on Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. I'm Steve Triffletti, your Plymouth Town Moderator, and we're here each day, Monday through Friday at noon for this update. This forum is being brought to you live by PAC TV on Comcast, channels 13 and 15, and Verizon, channels 43 and 47. You can also watch this on PAC TV's streaming channel by going to pactv.org/live. For questions during today's forum, please email plymouthinfo@pactv.org. These forums can be replayed at pactv.org/Plymouth. Today's participants include Kenneth Tavares, Matt Muratore, and we're also joined by Matthew McDonough. He is the Registrar of Plymouth County Probate Court. Christopher Smalley, he is the Senior Director of Marketing and Communications at Beth Israel Deaconess. Chad Hunter, who is the Plymouth Harbormaster. Stephen Cole, Executive Director, Plymouth Regional Economic Foundation. And now, at this time, we're going to begin with the Chair of the Plymouth Board of Selectmen, Kenneth Tavares. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you, Steve. I was just communicating with Chad, but he is here, so welcome, Chad. Yesterday, a question came up in regards to playgrounds and recreational areas. Someone mentioned that they have been getting tickets. The areas are closed, but if you can walk to a recreational area, you can also go on the property. You cannot drive a vehicle because all of the parking areas are closed. And as I mentioned yesterday, we will be reviewing this depending on what we hear from the governor, hopefully in a couple of days. So I can just sum that up by saying stay tuned. Steve?
Ken Tavares, Chair, Plymouth Board of Selectmen. Each day we try and be responsive to issues that come up during the day. And since our broadcast yesterday, last night, the trial court for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts issued a new order extending the May 4th order until June 1st. And here to tell us a little bit about that order and how it affects the Plymouth County Probate Court is Matthew McDonough, Register of Plymouth County Probate Court. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, Steve. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me on. So yesterday, as you said, Steve, there was a new standing order from the trial courts. Essentially, our standing orders are our governing orders for all of the clerks and judges throughout the entire Commonwealth of 6,500 employees and all of our hardworking staff in our many courthouses. And that standing order is letting us know that for the time being that the buildings are going to be closed to the public. Now, that can be a little bit confusing, and I've answered some questions on Facebook already about this in the last 24 hours. Well, the buildings are closed to the public. That means that we can't have the public walking into the buildings. But that doesn't mean that we're not serving the public while we are close to the public. The trial courts are still open, and in the probate and family court, we're working very diligently every single day. We've had to decrease our staff numbers in order to make sure that we have less than 10 employees on each individual shift. And we've had to make changes about the types of cases that we're handling. So essentially, we've had to triage the cases as they're coming in and make sure that we're first and foremost handling the emergency cases, the cases that pertain to domestic relation issues within the home, domestic violence issues that where somebody may need a restraining order, known as a 209A, issues of guardianship of a minor or of an incapacitated adult who may be in care at a hospital, and do not resuscitate orders that we deal with every once in a while as well. So I just want to make sure today that people know that we are extending our no public in the buildings policy until at least June 1st. And that we are still diligently working on behalf of the people of Plymouth County, and all of our divisions of the trial courts are doing the same thing. What I do expect in the coming days is that each division of the trial courts, it's essentially a giant umbrella. And we heard from the people at the very top yesterday, and the different divisions that exist within the trial courts will be issuing their individual standing orders that govern how we process cases in each of those divisions, whether that be probate and family, housing court, juvenile, district court, superior court. You'll see those chief justices issue new orders. And if people have cases in the court system and they're worried about how those standing orders impact their cases, the best way to get contact with the courts is through mass.gov, and then go into the search bar and just type in what division of the courts you're trying to reach. You can always reach the administrative offices and the individual clerk's offices as well. If you're trying to reach the Probate and Family Court in Plymouth County, right now, the best line for you to call is our Plymouth line, and that phone number is 508-747-6204. There's one other question that had come up. It doesn't pertain to probate and family because we don't have jury trials, but a lot of folks are worried about their jury service. And part of the standing order says that there will not be any jury pools or any jury trials until at least July 1st. So while we're closing the buildings completely to the public until June 1st, the standing order says that there won't be any juries until at least July 1st. If you have questions again about your jury service, you can always go to mass.gov and research the jury commissioner's phone number. And I'm sure that they will give you information about how they reschedule jury service as well. So I also just want to say I hope everybody's remaining safe and that we're going to get through this together.
Matt, we know that you're working today. You may have to leave us before the questions. But again, just to clarify, so for the courthouse in Plymouth, located on Aubrey Street, and it houses probate and many other courts, district, superior, housing. If someone shows up at that courthouse prior to June 1st, they will be triaged and they will not be entering unless they have a scheduled emergency hearing. Is that correct?
That is correct. The only exception to the standing order is if we're having a hearing that's previously been scheduled and the first justice of that division has approved it for an in-person hearing. And that's a rarity right now. So far, we've been able to triage our cases and handle all of our emergency hearings either telephonically or soon to be by video. We're going to be incorporating some Zoom technology. We're following the example that you set for us, Steve. And we're going to be using Zoom technology for some of our important hearings that we know can't wait a month or two down the road. And we're going to be having our assistant clerks reach out to the parties to make arrangements for those cases.
Thank you. And that's Matthew McDonough. He is the Register of Plymouth County Probate Court. You can send your questions to plymouthinfo@pactv.org. And we felt it was very important, given this order. The prior order tracked the governor's order insofar as courts were closed until May 4th. This new order from the court now closes the courts to the public until June 1st. We're still waiting for the governor's order to hear what other types of closures may or may not occur after May 4th. Thank you, Matthew McDonough. And we're now going to go to Christopher Smalley. We're delighted that the local Beth Israel Deaconess Plymouth campus is participating. We had Sarah Cloud on yesterday. Today, Christopher Smalley is the Senior Director of Marketing and Communications. Welcome, Chris.
Welcome. Hello, and Steve, good to be on your show, and hello to all the other panel members as well. And for all the viewers out there, first and foremost, a huge thank you to the outpouring of support from across Plymouth and across the region that we serve. It's really important for our employees, the frontline employees, the nurses, the doctors, the support staff, to receive all these kind words and signs that are on our property, as well as donations of food from local businesses here in Plymouth and around the area. So it's well supported by everyone here at the hospital, and we're grateful to the support that we continue to get from the people that we serve, the patients, as well as all the town employees here in Plymouth. Is constantly evolving, as we all know. And what we're doing at the hospital on a regular basis is always looking at our surge plan for the patient surge that is ongoing right now. We look at all areas of the hospital, from how well we're prepared to handle increasing numbers of patients, to the amount of equipment and supplies that we have. The great thing about being part of a 13 hospital system, Beth Israel Lahey Health, is that we are actively moving equipment and supplies from hospital to hospital where hospitals need equipment or supplies if they don't have it. Our staffing, we're constantly looking at that. Nurses right now are cross-trained in our hospital, so they can go from one department, which may not have as much volume, to another department to help out. And the same would apply for doctors as well, where they can help out on other floors as needed. As many of you know, and thank you to Ken and the rest of the people from Plymouth for helping this become a reality, We opened up a drive-through testing site on the hospital's grounds about 2 weeks ago, mainly for first responders in the area, as well as hospital employees that have been exposed to COVID-19 and other individuals as well. That's going very well. Logistically, there seems to be no issues there. And we're able to, as more and more testing occurs, have the ability to put more people through the drive-through testing. And we're still considering whether or not we can open that up to the general public at some point. And so that's the sort of short update from the hospital. The frontline staff are doing well. And again, the support from the community is incredible and well received.
Thank you. That's Christopher Smalley. He is the Senior Director of Marketing and Communication, Beth Israel Deaconess here at our Plymouth campus. Chris and the other members of our panel will be here to answer your questions. Email us at plymouthinfo@pactv.org. And now today, returning for more information about boating in Plymouth would be Chad Hunter, our Plymouth Harbormaster. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you. Thank you for having me the second time. We've obviously experienced a large number of questions as people are sort of stuck at home. They're, looking to get outside and, hopefully be boating. March and April are definitely early for the recreational boating crowd, but everybody's wondering how this boating season is going to unfold. We've actually gotten the mooring bills were actually withheld, and they've been mailed, so people are starting to get their mooring bills. We have put in some the ability for people to sort of take the year off if they are negatively affected by the COVID-19 precautions, or they don't feel comfortable being out for this 2020 season. We've given them the ability to sort of take the year off. So we ask that they reach out to us prior to the bill being due to do that. The other biggest question we've had is, when are the moorings going back in? As most people are aware, we had 2 years of a dredging project, which actually wrapped up February this year. A lot of that in preparation for the 2020 events. The dredging was completed in February on time. The mooring service was then going to move all of the moorings that were removed prior to the dredge. Unfortunately, just before they started, it was about mid-March, the governor came out with, the precautions, and the mooring service decided to stop. When they are moving moorings, it requires 3 to 4 people to be on a boat together in a very confined space. So they felt uncomfortable moving forward with that, and they've been heeding the governor's warning since. That ultimately pushes the project, the moorings going back probably a month and a half. We've been in close contact with the mooring service, and they are expecting to start on May 5th. So we're very hopeful that they do that. Some of the commercial fishermen have started to get back in the water. They're set for either a May 1st opening season for lobster. I'm not too sure. I guess there's still some right whales in the bay. So there is the potential that gets pushed back for the number of right whales that are still out in the bay. But ultimately, they're getting ramped up. They're getting ready to get back to work and go fishing. So we've been able to find moorings for them to go on until their moorings are placed. The other thing that actually was just released yesterday, everybody's trying to figure out, different policies and procedures for use of the facilities. So the docks, the boat ramps. There's been a number of concerned people that have called, wondering if we're going to shut those ramps down completely, or boating's going to get shut down completely. Some of the other states like Maryland and some counties in Florida actually stopped all recreational boating. So we've been fielding a number of calls with those types of questions. The state yesterday released some guidance about boating and the boat ramps within the Commonwealth. And really what they're looking to do is, you're following a lot of the same social distancing practices that you have at the grocery stores and everywhere else while you're at the facilities. And ultimately, once you leave the facility, boating is, really, I guess, very easy to practice social distancing while out on the water, because generally speaking, you're not getting close to people unless you're at a beach, which they've also put in some concerns or protocol for that. Obviously, you don't want to anchor next to people. If there's people at Browns Bank, you don't want to pull right up next to them. You give them some space. But really, they're protecting any of the commercial uses, so commercial fishing. They're ultimately relying on the towns to determine whether or not they can have a recreational use of the ramp, which we're supporting fully. I think once we'll probably be in May, late May, June before things pick up here in Plymouth. So hopefully that buys us a little bit of time, and then we've looked at different ways to keep people practicing social distancing. At the boat ramp, they're probably going to be required to be wearing facial coverings while at the ramp in public. We've limited the amount of lanes. The boat ramp is 3 lanes wide. We block the middle one, which then pushes people to the outsides, which gives them about 8 to 10 feet between the boats that are launching. So we've also looked at some of the spaces on the docks themselves. Instead of allowing full use, we've sort of staggered the docking space to, again, promote people to be at least 10 feet apart. So those are some of the things we're looking at. I think what's going to change pretty soon, I would say by this weekend, we've seen a lot of people going to the boat ramp to hang out. It's one of the only parking lots that I think is still open. So because of all the other closures, we've seen an influx over at the boat ramp. And we want to protect the boaters and the commercial fishermen especially. So we're going to be limiting that activity. We're not going to allow people to hang out at the boat ramp lot, drive through the boat ramp lot. I think we're going to shut that down and keep that available for boaters and really protect that use. So there'll be extra signage over there, some blockades that you kind of have to work with. And, I'm hopeful that, we can sort of maintain recreational boating, do it safely. I think the one thing we're going to need from people using these facilities is sort of patience and understanding. I think, even on a normal summer day, we can see long lines and backups. And I think we'll be sort of prepared to deal with that. But again, as we sort of cut down the use of the facility, that's probably going to mean longer waits, longer lines. So we'll just ask for everybody to remain patient. And ultimately, if we can do it safely, we can keep the ramp open. So that's my update. We've been posting a lot of material on our website. Been using Twitter as well to get the message out there. So thank you.
Thank you. That's Chad Hunter, Plymouth Harbormaster. We're now going to jump to our State Representative Matthew Muratore. I believe he has an announcement regarding the governor extending the stay-at-home. Matt?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So the governor has just announced he's extending the order till May 18th. An advisory board is being put together that will include health people and business people to start looking at phasing in and guidance as how we can open beginning on May 19th. The reason why the extension for a couple more weeks is that the good news is we're seeing a flattening of the curve, but we still need a couple of weeks of a downward trend of the curve. We have the hospitalizations are at 7%. As you remember last week, they're at 9% of those hospitalized with COVID-19. It's down to 7%, but we still need to see that line go down. So we're going to need a couple more weeks of that.
Thank you, and that's Matthew Muratore, Plymouth State Representative. We'll come back to Matt momentarily, but right now we're going to go to Stephen Cole. He's the Executive Director for the Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation, and he's doing today's business component. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. It's always a pleasure to be here. I know it's a Tuesday or a Thursday because I'm here. Times like this, I find myself turning towards Mark Twain. I find that the man has pretty much written everything that could possibly be said about things. And his quote that I'm reflecting on right now is that whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. That's not a political statement. I think that's actually equally an economic statement. All of us, certainly a majority of us, are finding ourselves right now shrouded in uncertainty. What to do now, what to do next. I spent the last couple of weeks appearing on this program, encouraging folks to think about what kind of a business they would like to run. During this time, I find it's helpful to think about how you can improve your business by working with a business plan, or just by identifying certain types of problems that exist in your life or in society that you would like to solve for. That's usually the foundation of how many businesses get started. I also, though, receive some pushback from folks asking, why would now be the time to think about forming some kind of business? Well, it's true. Some liquidity is drying up. Some supply chains are a little uncertain, right? But admittedly, it is a thought exercise that some folks should be working toward, whether you have a business now or not, because the fact of the matter is we are going to go through a recovery period. And so I spent the last couple of days thinking about other types of businesses that I was familiar with and researching types of businesses that started during recessions. And I want to share with you a couple of them, or at least during crisis, because we're not technically in a recession as yet. But I want to make you guys aware that, at least on a global scale, International Red Cross, the UN, the World Health Organization, all of those things started during crisis. They're all entities that we're all familiar with. A little closer to home, let's talk about Airbnb, Uber, Amazon, Netflix. All of those things started whether in 2008, 2009, as with Airbnb and Uber, or 1994 and 1997, as with Amazon and Netflix. There was a big bubble burst, let's not forget, in the early 90s that some of us have actually forgotten. Looking also to GE, they started in 1892. There was a panic of 1893 that lasted 16 months. None of us remember that except maybe Ken, who was there. But the fact is that in 1893, this is a company that has started and has impacted our lives for several generations since. GM started in 1908 during a 13-month recession. How many of us own a GM vehicle right now? Disney started in 1929, lest we forget that there was a 4-year recession that started in 1929. Hyatt Hotels started in 1957 with one gentleman buying a motel next to LA International Airport. Any of us who have ever had anything delivered by Netflix in the last couple of weeks, it's either been done by FedEx or UPS. Guess what? FedEx started in the 70s at the start of a gas crisis. What a terrible idea to start a business that's dependent on gas during a gas crisis. No one would deny that FedEx is an integral part of today's fabric and society. A lot of us have kids at home that are playing electronic games, be it on their computers or gaming systems. Electronic art started in 1982. Early 80s was a pretty terrible time for employment and growth in manufacturing. Today, that's a company that has 10,000 employees and boasts over $5 billion in revenues. Now, a little more contemporaneously, let's talk what happened during the Great Recession in 2008 and 9. I'm sure some of us have heard of Sky Zone Indoor Trampoline Park. They started in 2008, and today they're a $167 million company. Wedding Wire is another good example that started during the Great Recession. Today they're a $49 million company. So there's a handful of examples, I think, that we can point to where these mega companies started at a very small point during an uncertain time like what we're in today. But look, companies that want to grow or start during this time and in the aftermath, they can do so, but they have to become confident and they must repurpose themselves so that they are either relevant to or able to lead in the economic and social recovery. I suspect that some typical barriers to entry for small business startups will be solved for, largely because in Plymouth, we have strong working relationships with our economic development partners at the EDA, the US EDA, as well as Mass Development. So I'll share some more information as the broadcast goes on. I want to save some content for Thursday too, something to look forward to, folks. But the fact of the matter is anybody who is thinking of starting a business at this time or is really fairly uncertain about whether or not they have a job to go back to, now is the time to start thinking about the kind of business that you want to run. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. That's Stephen Cole. He is the Executive Director, Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation. And now we're going to go back to Plymouth Representative Matthew Muratore for what would have been your opening statement, Matt.
Hey, I'm still checking on the governor. Nothing more new at this point, but I don't think it's a surprise that we are actually going to stay for a couple more weeks. Again, the flattening of the curve is there. Now we just need to see a downward turn. So we're starting to turn the corner a little bit. It's good to hear Chris Smalley on the broadcast today from BID. BID has done a terrific job of managing this. Today they have 46 cases, or as of yesterday, these numbers, BID Plymouth Hospital had 46 cases of COVID-19, with 9 of those in the ICU. Interesting too, South Shore Hospital, which is a much bigger hospital than BID Plymouth, they had, as of yesterday, 139 cases of COVID-19 with 25 of those in the ICU. The other numbers, the increase for testing from the day before, these numbers are as of yesterday, April 27th. The increase of testing went up by 8,787. So we've now been able to test 3.5% of the population of the Commonwealth. At 244,887 folks have been tested to date. Of those, 56,462 have been confirmed with the COVID-19. And that's an increase of 1,524 from the day before. And that's 23% of those tested have been confirmed with COVID-19, with the average age of 54. And the number that are actual numbers that are in ICU beds in the Commonwealth with COVID-19 are a little over 1,089. And those total hospitalizations are 3,892 of those folks that have been confirmed with COVID-19 are hospitalized. In the Southeast Mass area, the hospitalization, the open beds are still around 53%. So we have good capacity in ICU beds as well as regular beds in the area hospitals. So if you have other illnesses or needs, please don't hesitate to contact your PCP or go to the hospital if you need to. With regards to deaths, we've had an increase of 104 deaths from the day before. So we've now hit the 3,000 mark. We're at 3,003, which is 5.3% of those that have been tested positive have unfortunately passed away, with 56% of those deaths have come from long-term care facilities, whether it's a skilled nursing facility, assisted living, or a nursing home. With regard to the House and the Senate today and the governor yesterday afternoon signed the notary bill. Steve, I know this is something that's been an interest to you as an attorney and other attorneys and real estate folks. So that bill is now signed. So notaries can be done virtually now. There are a set of checks and balances that go with it. It makes it easier to notarize wills, trusts, healthcare proxies, and real estate documents. So that is now in effect. Interestingly enough, we are going to be in session on this Thursday at 1 o'clock. And we have not been in session since early March. And we're going to do this virtually. So the House Rules Committee has come up with some proposed rules that we'll be debating virtually on Thursday. And I will let you know how it actually goes. This is a test for cities and towns if they're thinking of doing something like this. But we are doing it as a House of Representatives. We'll be kicking it off. We're looking at rules now. I'm going to be debating some of those rules. There'll be some folks that will be at the State House, of course, 6 feet apart with masks on, but very, very few legislators will be there. The majority of 160 of us will be at our homes and going on virtually. So we'll let you know how that goes. With regard to the payroll protection plan, we indicated yesterday's show that as of 10:30 yesterday morning, that has opened up again. The federal government has provided, I think it's $380 billion more for small business under 500 employees. And so if you haven't applied yet, you want to apply today, you want to reach out to your bank. This is all controlled through your bank. So wherever you do your banking, whoever your lender is, you want to reach out to them because they are the ones that are going to be able to help you through this. It's a relatively simple document that has to be done and some signatures that have to be done, but they're the ones that control that for you. So please, if you haven't yet, please reach out to your bank. And that's the update as of now, Steve.
Thank you. And that is Plymouth Representative Matthew Muratore. He's here to answer your questions. You can email your questions to PlymouthInfo@pactv.org. And as we prepare for any questions we receive, we're looking at tomorrow's lineup. Ken Tavares and Matthew Muratore and I will be joined by Dr. Barry Potvin. He is the Plymouth Board of Health Vice Chair. Also on Wednesdays, we welcome Michael Jackman from Congressman Keating's office, and also Heather Cosby. She's a CPA with the town of Plymouth. Amy Naples, the Executive Director for Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce, will be bringing her guest, Michael Hargrave, and he is with Masks for Meds. Those are our lineup for tomorrow, and we'll take any questions at plymouthinfo@pactv.org. But while we're waiting for that, we're going to circle back to our participants and ask each of them to give us a closing statement or takeaway for what you'd like the viewers to remember today. And we're going to begin with Christopher Smalley. He is the Senior Director of Marketing and Communications, Beth Israel Deaconess. Chris, what do you want our viewers to remember from what you've had to present today?
I think the most important thing, and Matt sort of picked up on this, there is capacity at hospitals throughout the Commonwealth, including here in Plymouth. The concern that we're seeing at our hospital, and all hospitals for that matter, there are individuals that may be having emergent situations, chest pains. They might have slurred speech if they're having a potential stroke, and they're not coming to emergency departments when they should be, because they're afraid that if they come to an emergency department, that they may contract COVID-19. We have lots of protections in place within our emergency department. Outside of the ED, there's a tent. Anyone who has influenza-like symptoms would be screened there. If they then have to go into the emergency department, they would then go to, and they may have COVID-19 or COVID-19 symptoms, they would go to an isolated part of our emergency department. And the whole goal there is to protect the patients that don't have those influenza-like symptoms. So I think the takeaway is that, and you'll start to see this, and Governor Baker has mentioned this as well last week with the PSA, if a viewer is having an emergency situation, if they're having chest pains, if they're having classic symptoms of a stroke, they should call 911 and come to the emergency department, be it ours or another hospital. I think that's the biggest takeaway. We have the capacity to handle patients that come into the emergency department as well as inpatients. But really, if you're having an emergency, don't hesitate, call 911 and come to an emergency department to seek that care that you need. What could happen is that the medical situation for that individual could be a lot worse if they neglect that care. So emergency departments, you can still come to them. There's lots of protections in place, and that's the takeaway for the viewers on your show. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher Smalley. He is the Director of Marketing and Communications, Beth Israel Deaconess in Plymouth. We're going to go to our next question, which actually is one that I can handle as town moderator, and it's asking for updates as to town meeting. And what I can tell the viewer is that the Committee on Precinct Chairs conducted a survey. Last night, Alan Costello, the chair of the Committee of Precinct Chairs, wrote to me to tell me that he is compiling a list of the responses from town meeting members, and we expect to have that this afternoon in advance of the meeting before the Board of Selectmen tonight at 5 o'clock. In addition, I will be presenting to the Board of Selectmen the consideration for a special and annual town meeting in June, and as of this date, we do not have any action from the legislature on the pending bill co-sponsored by Representative Matthew Muratore, which would provide for a virtual town meeting. And when we come back to Matt can add anything further. At this time, we're going to go to Chad Hunter. Chad, what would be the takeaway that you'd like viewers to remember from your presentation today?
I think obviously we wanted to get some information out there. I want people to kind of keep a close eye to the website. And if they follow Twitter, obviously they can get some information there as well. We are here. So if there's follow-up emails or phone calls, questions that need to be answered, we're available to do that. I guess, the takeaway, hopefully, as this boating season shapes up, things are looking a bit better. we do still have about a month before things start to get busy. So hopefully that will help. But, even when I think this summer we'll be continuing to practice social distancing. And I just ask people to be patient. And obviously, the warnings and different things you need to do while at these facilities. I just want people to understand that, we're all in this together. And, if we take these precautions, we can keep the boat ramps open. We can keep, it's definitely a new normal for boaters, but we want to protect that. And, these are some of the ways that we're going to be able to do that. So, like I said, we'll be updating the website on a pretty frequent basis. So they can check there for new information or updates. We did post the state recreational boating memo that was released yesterday, so people can take a closer look at that if they'd like. And we're here, we're ready to respond if needed. We have had quite a few boats go out for haddock. That's a fishery that just opened. So we've seen an uptick in use at the ramp and boating activity. And again, it is still relatively early, so the water is still in the 40s. So that's so this can be a very dangerous time to be out on the water. Just there's not as many people, and if you do end up falling overboard, you really only have minutes before you need to be rescued. So just keep an eye on the website and give us a call if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's Chad Hunter. He is the Harbormaster for the town of Plymouth. Each day we provide you with this update in an effort to have interactive communication with residents in the town of Plymouth and town officials, as well as experts in fields that are responding to the coronavirus. These updates are date stamped in the top right-hand corner, and this is coming to you live on Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. It's update number 33 as we go now to Stephen Cole. Steve, what would be your takeaway for today for our viewers?
Thank you, Steve. Well, I think I want folks to have some sense of optimism. I think it's true that some jobs will be going away. Certain types of businesses will likely have to redesign themselves or pivot. But there's a lot of things out there to be optimistic about. So with that, if anybody wants to know the types of podcasts, for example, I listen to kind of quiesce some of my own concerns about the economy, I can recommend things like Freakonomics. Slate Money is pretty good. Planet Money is also pretty good, put on by NPR. And also, I encourage folks to look at the IMF for a more global perspective. But keeping informed, I think, is the most important thing, staying busy and staying healthy. Because if there's anything that's certainly going to quash any kind of attempts at a recovery, it'll be a sick population. So stay healthy, folks.
Stephen Cole is the Executive Director of Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation. At this time, we're going to go back to Matthew Muratore, our Plymouth State Representative. Matt, what would be your closing statement today?
Well, again, so the governor has extended the order to May 18th, and that's good news that it didn't go to the end of May. And I think the good news is that the flattening of the curve is here. We're now looking at a downward trend. We should be seeing that shortly. So the numbers will look better. So that's good news. The governor also has just announced, too, there's a 17-member advisory board that is made up of health, municipal, and government leaders, as well as business leaders. And they will be meeting every day beginning today, 7 days a week until prior to May 18th, where they'll come out with a plan on how we reopen as of May 19th. So I think that we're finally seeing a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And as Steve has said, Steve Cole said, just keep staying informed. Stay informed as we talk about every day by going to mass.gov/COVID-19. Call by asking questions, calling 211. You can get text alerts by texting COVID-MA to 888-777, or in Spanish, COVID-MA ESP to 888-777. You have health questions, bowie.com/mass. Stay calm. The weather's going to get a little bit nicer. It's okay to go outside and, get some fresh air, walk around, keep your distance, wear a mask, so that we can get through this by May 18th and start opening up with new guidance and there will be new guidance that will happen beginning May 19th. So stay informed for that. Again, so stay home, stay calm, you know, let's get through this together. You are saving lives with what you're doing. Whether you're staying home, you are saving lives. So we want to give a big thanks to all the healthcare providers who are taking care of us physically, and those that are taking care of our economic health as well. The people that are out there, all those essential workers. Thank you to Chris Smalley and BID for what you're doing. Chad's going to have a really busy, I think, summer because people are going to want to get out soon, and they're going to be, the pent up energy is going to be there, so they're going to want to be out there. So I have a feeling that Chad is going to be busy out there. So thank you again to PAC TV and to you, Steve. And again, the more we can come together by staying apart, the faster we'll get together with the people that we love and the things we love to do.
Thank you, Representative Matthew Muratore. As he thanks all of our guests, we'd like to again thank Matthew McDonough, Registrar of Plymouth County Probate Court. He did have to sign off early, but for those of you that may have joined us late, he did advise us that yesterday the trial court entered an order wherein all trial courts in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts will be closed to the public until June 1st, except for previously scheduled emergency hearings. We also want to thank Christopher Smalley. He is here from Beth Israel Deaconess. He is the Senior Director of Marketing Communications. Thanks again for coming back. Chad Hunter, Plymouth's Harbormaster, and each Tuesday and Thursday, Stephen Cole, Executive Director, Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation. This time we're going to go back to the chair of the Plymouth Board of Selectmen, Kenneth Tavares, for his final thoughts. Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I had a question that was sent to me while we were talking, and if I may, I'd like to address it to the Harbormaster. And the question is, will the change of May 4th to May 18th impact when displaced moorings will be returned to harbor placement?
Chad.
So that's a great question. Obviously, just hearing that news now, being on the phone, you know, I think what we're going to have to do is talk to the mooring service. They were pretty adamant. We kind of talked about this a little bit, understanding that May 5th may, you know, actually be pushed back. So I think they were intending to start May 5th. But like I said, I have to talk to the mooring service and see if that extension will push him back anymore.
Thank you, Chad. In closing remarks, I'd like to remind everyone that the Board of Selectmen will be meeting on PAC TV at 5 o'clock this afternoon. We anticipate that the meeting will last about 90 minutes. Also, I'd like to recognize on behalf of the town, BID. BID has been, even when it was known as Jordan Hospital, has been a silent hero of this community, and we appreciate the interaction that the community has had with the staff of BID and the understanding that has been given to us. And I certainly look at them as being one of the giants of the community. Chad said it, I think, best today when he asked for patience and understanding. I know there's a little bit of quarantine fatigue that's setting in, but we're almost there. And I think if we get into whatever the new norm is going to be with patience and understanding, we will get so much more done in a reasonable fashion. So stay with it. We are going to beat it. We are beating it. And thank you.
Thank you. That's Kenneth
Steve.
Tavares. He is chair of the Plymouth Board of Selectmen. You'll be hearing more from him today at 5 o'clock when the Board of Selectmen meets here on PAC TV. And looking forward to tomorrow's program, Ken, Matt, and I will be joined by Barry Potvin. He is the vice chair for the Plymouth Board of Health. Also, Michael Jackman. He is a staff member in the office of Congressman Bill Keating. Heather Cosby. She is a CPA from the town of Plymouth. Amy Naples, the executive director for the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce. We'll be here each day, Monday through Friday, for the foreseeable future. I'm Steve Triffletti, Plymouth Town Moderator. Good day and thank you.